All right. It is, what is it? Wednesday, March 12th. And Bill and I are here to talk about Michael Logue, one of our favorite subjects, and our combined double-barreled public participation yesterday at the Union Township Trustee meeting. And so we had fun with that. So just as a quick background, and I have an overlay here. It's going to like go over us and you won't be able to see us, but so there's some stuff going on that involves an anonymous hit job on somebody over some stuff 30 years ago that's part of the Union Township Republican Central Committee. And it appears that people like Michael Logue are involved with it. Certainly not denying it, not working against it or trying to stop it. But part of the whole thing is that there was a Union Township Republican Central Committee meeting on March 3rd. And in that meeting, I'm a member, Bill used to be a member, and Michael Logue has not been to a meeting since September of 2023. And so there was this anonymous hit job thing going on, trying to force somebody on the committee to resign. This is the worst side of it, and this happens a lot. This kind of stuff, crooked, crappy, shitty stuff. So anonymous hit job, trying to get somebody to resign. It came out like I think the Thursday before whatever was March 3rd, so like February 27th or 28th or something like that. It got the person in question did not resign immediately, probably like they were supposed to. and from this hit job. And so then we get to Monday when the meeting's going to be, and right before the meeting happens, the meeting was at 7 at the Union Township Civic Center. It was at 7. I got texted at exactly, I think it was 3:51 p.m. by an Enquirer reporter. And then I talked to the Enquirer reporter for about 40 minutes, and they had been tipped off to this story about this person where this stuff had been dug up on them from 30 years ago, and they were going to come to the meeting. So the Enquirer was going to cover this, and I think that was just to put more pressure on the person to resign. Thank God the Enquirer did not show up. I told him the whole story and what kind of a hit job it was. And then, so the meeting's taking place. So right after I talked to the reporter on that Monday at about 4:30, the first person I called was actually Bill Thomas. And he's the only person I told about the reporter contacting me, that somebody had told them about this and they wanted to come to the meeting. And Bill, you would probably remember me calling you. And what was your reaction when you heard when I told you the stuff about the reporter vis-a-vis Michael Logue?
I felt like if Michael Logue showed up to that meeting, it was going to be a sign that he would have had something to do with it, just because he hadn't been to so many meetings. And I thought, well, hopefully he doesn't show up, because I would just be a bad look. And I was shocked. I mean, I know I shouldn't be, but I was shocked that he showed up to the meeting, because it was funny that we had this discussion that a reporter's going to happen to be there at the meeting that he was just going to randomly show up to. And
when he never comes. And by the way, it had been 17 months, as I said. I think you were the first one that said to me, your gut reaction was, if Logue shows up, it's going to probably say he was involved. And especially because you got the two things, an anonymous hit job, but you got reporter. And Mr. Logue, he do like him some reporters, right? Like he likes to get, I think two things happened. So Logue, and I put a video out of actually the meeting room video, because I got the surveillance, and you'll find out why I got the surveillance video of the meeting room. But he came in, I think 12 minutes after the meeting started. So the meetings start roughly between 7 and 7:05. They usually don't start right at 7. He came in 12 minutes after we said the prayer. I can tell that because the meeting video is silent from there's no audio in those rooms, but you can tell when everybody stands up to pray that the meeting started. And so he went there and had about 12 minutes into the meeting, he shows up, And Bill and I look at each other, and I actually texted a couple of people trying to get a picture of Logue in the meeting, because it's almost been 2 years since he's been in a meeting, and he's on the committee, and he just never comes to the meetings. As an aside, what kind of things, Bill, you might rattle off? What are some of the things that Mr. Logue does have time for? He doesn't have time for the meetings for the ground level committee he's part of, but he's got time for, what are some examples of other things he has time for?
Well, he's got time to go to the inauguration and take a bunch of pictures with people.
Hang out at the Bible Museum.
I have received a lot of either phone calls or people that have come up to me and talked to me about Logue at the inauguration. And again, people, I think, see the stuff that we write or we talk about Michael Logue, and they think there's some sort of vendetta or obsession. It's not an obsession. It's more along the lines of he just keeps doing more and more. And I've actually contacted him directly. It's not like I haven't reached out to him and said, hey, man, you got to stop this kind of nonsense. And from what I understand, other people have reached out to him and have said something to him about something to this effect. Maybe not as aggressive as I have, but it's nothing personal. It's like, dude, you had an opportunity to be somebody in politics had you just kept your head down, did the job, and let things organically grow over time and do the right thing. Instead, you're trying to fast track your career and make yourself known and aware, and you're actually being counterproductive to your career. And he won't concede to that. It's like these political figureheads refuse to admit when they're wrong. They just can't. And that is not reflective of Christian values. One of the things that, Logue promotes, that he's a Christian, that he goes to Bible study meetings, and, he believes this and believes that. If you really study the Bible, humility and the ability to admit when you're wrong is like some key things in the book of Proverbs.
And I don't think you need to study it's good to study the Bible, learn those things, but those things are just good people. Like, good people are not, are humble. But what I want to get back to is, so what happened was, the meeting took place. I did take a picture of that you can't even hardly see. It's a terrible picture. I should have put up. Maybe I'll put it up here in a second. I turned around and took a picture. I didn't do it very. You can watch the video in the meeting room, and you can see the interaction in the meeting room. You can tell a meeting's going on. You can't hear it. It's silent because there's no audio from those cameras, and you can see what's going on. So Michael Logue shows up 12 minutes late, and exactly about 10 minutes later, he leaves. And so ostensibly he leaves because I took a picture of him, but he had texted somebody, but he was there, and ostensibly he was going to defend the person who was getting this anonymous hit job against them. But he took off, because of the amazing pressure that he was under. And so what happened was, over the weekend on March 8th, people might have saw in the news, J.D. Vance was sort of accosted by a mob at his house, walking around with his kid. So Michael Logue, he loves him some. Would you agree with this too, Bill? He loves him some kissing up to these people, and wanting to have the feeling of like being important to him. So he does this post. I'm going to share it here, where the post about this thing that happened to him, just like what happened to J.D. Vance. So the post says, this happens at all levels, especially when young families step up to lead, because traditional American families are under attack. As an elected Republican, I was out with my kids this week when a protester deliberately targeted my children, taking pictures of us as a form of harassment under a guise of free speech. And you'll hear more. There's one more paragraph, but you'll hear this when we are doing public participation. So you'll hear the whole, like, that there's only a little bit of it I didn't even read. But it's like that somehow he had the same thing happen to him that happened to J.D. Vance. Well, it turns out that was supposedly me. And that night, I was watching basketball with a couple guys, and I had 4 different people contact me about Michael Logue making this crazy post. And then a huge argument broke out on the post of a bunch of different people going back and forth. And I think you were part of that, Bill, because you were one of the people in that. So maybe a Saturday night, Logue makes this post, and then you get wind of it, and it just goes downhill from there.
Yeah, it was sent to me and I can guarantee you the person that sent it to me was not a person that sent it to you. And they're like, what's going on here? Like, what is wrong with this guy? And I couldn't help myself but to just be like, what the heck, man? I couldn't believe it when I read it. I thought, man, could he possibly just keep going with just lowering the bar?
So he sort of just had this, like, I guess, meltdown, not just in the meeting, whatever. I think he left the meeting because the reporter wasn't there and he was counting on a reporter being there. I also think he left the meeting because the tenor of the meeting was very supportive of the people, of the person that was getting the anonymous hit job against them. And so I think that people were thinking this anonymous hit job would shock the sensibilities of people and cause people to turn on this person. But it did the reverse. Wouldn't you say, Bill? Like, you never saw the Union Township Committee more united than in that meeting.
Absolutely.
We are not going to put up with this crap. Somebody coming in here trying to swift boat one of us, and people have done things in their past. They're good, bad, right, wrong. But we're not going to tolerate this dredging shit up from 30 years ago, especially, and a hard button for me is this anonymous crap. Because I tell you, Thomas Paine wrote Common Sense anonymously to lift up the almost going to be burgeoning country. But generally speaking, anybody that does something anonymously, they're usually hiding their ulterior motives. They do it anonymously because if you knew who was doing it, you would know that they have an ulterior motive in it all. So
what I didn't understand is why no one else went up to the podium to speak. I mean, there was all the people on Union Township Central Committee that witnessed that and then saw this. I would think, even if they just spoke for 30
You're
seconds. You're
talking about in the meeting last night.
Yeah, just go up to the podium. You don't even have to give 5 minutes.
Well, I think that they're all, you and I took care of it. So
I know, but the problem is it loses its luster when it's the same two people.
Yeah, I agree with that. Actually, I agree with that. I agree with that. I had sent out a thing asking people to come to the meeting, and other than maybe one person, that Kim that's new on the committee, nobody incrementally even came to the meeting. That's one thing is the Union Township Republican Central Committee. A lot of the people don't come to. I think you have an obligation if you're on that to at least go to a couple school board meetings during your tenure, at least go to a couple trustee meetings so you know what happens and how they work. Right. And so this would have been a good one to go to. So
but you could just go up for 30 seconds and just say, you know what, Mr. Logue, as an elected official, I'm disappointed that you were dishonest with that post. Boom, done. You don't have to go into the level that you and I go into, but I think if you heard the message from like 15 people, imagine if Rob Wing, who's on the Central Committee that witnessed this, imagine if Rob Wing went to the podium and just said, you know what, Mr. Logue, I'm disappointed. I mean, my question to Rob is, Rob, do you appreciate lying? Do you appreciate the dishonesty? Do you want to be Logue's friend? If you want to be Logue's friend, then call me out.
What's funny is we had a little discussion like this. By enabling these people and enabling the behavior, you're not helping that person. It'd be like looking the other way because your kid's not doing too much drugs. And it's going to get worse from there. But another thing I would point out is, now Ron Campbell wasn't there, but the 4 people sitting across the front of that dais that are elected officials in Union Township are all on the Republican Central Committee. So, those people could also provide some wise counsel to Michael Logue on his behavior. And I would hope that some of them are at this point. So what I want to do, Bill, just to keep us moving along here, because we're going to play each of our public participations. We each talk for about 5 minutes. But before we talk, so Logue knew it was coming that we were going to talk. And there was this woman that got up and talked first. I'm always amused by people that come up, and talk that are just all glad-handing people. The Constitution gives us the right specifically to redress grievances, because I always joke with people that because no elected official has a problem with somebody heaping praise on them. You can do that all night. It's the redressing grievances. But the funny part is this woman, before Bill and this woman talks, and before you're just going to hear like 6 seconds, because she starts talking without going up to the podium. See, it's hard to hear her, but she's like, you told somebody to come and give a positive speech, so I'm here. So here it is.
You would ask for a positive comment, and I would say I would
Man,
So
look
you
at
see
that.
Logue's
Look
glad
at
at his
that.
face.
That's
when the
that's
woman is
not
saying,
the that's not the face he was given when you and I.
Yeah,
were
because this
speaking.
woman's like, you asked for positive comments, so I'm here to give a positive comment.
Look at that
And she just got
face.
up and talked about how great everybody was.
Oh my gosh. Oh, I
So
can't.
who you want to go now? I talked first and you talked second. You get to pick what order do you want me to play them in.
I don't care. Play yours. It's fine.
Okay, so this is mine, and let's take
Man, that face. Man, I need a screenshot of that because
He was happy.
oh,
Got a buck teeth look there.
I just anybody. Is there anybody in here giving positive comments?
Any
Anybody?
comments, please?
The person that I asked before the meeting, can you please come to the
Give a
podium
positive.
and give the
All
positive
right.
comments?
Tell you what, let's try to do this. Is when I play these, let's you and I not interrupt them, let them play, and then we can have a couple comments just to keep us moving along. Okay?
Yep.
All right, here's mine.
I was watching some basketball with some friends of mine on March 8th, Saturday, March 8th, when 4 people started texting me about a post from Mr. Logue. And that post on Facebook said he was equating himself to J.D. Vance because like a mob had gone around J.D. Vance's house. And he said, this happens at all levels, especially when young families step up to lead because the traditional American family values are under attack. As an elected Republican, I was out with my kids this week when a protester deliberately targeted my children, taking pictures of us as a form of harassment under the guise of free speech. For them, it was a political stunt. For me, it was a teachable moment, an opportunity to show my boys the values of mercy, strength, and how to stand tall in the face of bullying. We will not be intimidated, and we will continue to lead with faith and conviction. I came to realize later, and you can refute it, that was about me, that I'm supposedly the bully. And what he's talking about is a Union Township Republican Central Committee meeting. Just for a little background, he's on the committee, I'm on the committee, Mr. Dills and Mr. Becker are on the committee. And Mr. Logue has not been to a meeting in 17 months. He showed up at a meeting on March 3rd, this past Monday. First time in 17 months. Came in late, he left early. But he claims, I guess, that he was under some sort of harassment in the meeting because you know what I did? And I'll admit to doing it. And there's probably 4 or 5 other people would have done it, Mr. Logue. I turned around and took a picture of you in a meeting because you're never in a meeting. This is the picture. That's the picture. That's the same kind of harassment J.D. Vance had to take place to him. You left out a lot of things in your post, like your involvement in a plot to use an anonymous attack to take a person on the committee who happens to be the chair of the committee, not me, not you, and get them to resign. You showed up at the meeting, I think, because you or one of your associates had arranged for an Enquirer reporter to come to the meeting because the person you were trying to get to resign would not resign. So the heat goes up by an Enquirer reporter. Fortunately, the Enquirer reporter actually called me, because some of them know me. I don't really know any of them, but she called me, and I talked her out of it. I talked her out of showing up at the meeting. So Mr. Logue came into the meeting late. A good man who's on the committee is being swift-boated by Mr. Logue and his accomplices over something that happened in this person's past about 30 years ago. He left all that out. You left all that out of your post. So you claim, though, that me taking a picture, that picture, not even a good picture, I barely got anybody in the picture, in a meeting, which happens all the time, by the way, it's politics, you're in a meeting, that's like J.D. Vance getting attacked by a mob outside his house. Mr. Logue, you said you had come to that meeting to support the person that was getting anonymously threatened. You said that you're against that. Well, here's what I have. I have a sheet of paper that says, I condemn elected officials, government employees, party committee members, or their spouses using unattributed, anonymous hit job tactics. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to approach, nobody's shooting or anything, and I'm going to give it first and let you guys hand it down and see if any of you will sign it. Will Mr. Becker sign it? That he condemns anonymous hit job tactics being used by government employees, so Mr. Becker won't sign it. Mr. Logue won't sign it.
I can actually hand it over to the clerk pro tem.
Wait and see if Mr. Dills will sign it.
I mean, of course I agree with this, Chris.
Okay, then why won't you sign it?
Board, let the chair.
Mr. Hicks, I don't think we want to play your
chair
games.
hold the.
Okay, so why don't you then verbally, I get you guys, Mr. Dills and Mr. Becker, why don't you verbally tell us right now that you support and that you are against, Mr. Logue, the use of anonymous hit job smears of people, dredging up information 30 years in their past. Why don't you say something about that right now? That you repudiate that and you stand with Mr. How much time do I have left?
You have 10 seconds.
So, Mr. Logue, it's so typical of you. You do the anonymous shit in the background and then act like you're a saint with complete nonsense posted online, and then you refuse to speak up in support of a man that's being smeared, and you refuse to repudiate those kind of tactics.
Thank you for your comments.
All right, so that was me. So
I just noticed something new, and when I went back and watched it, so when Logue handed it to Dills was in the middle of reviewing and reading it, and Logue stuck his hand out and said, "Hand it back to the chair." Like he demanded that another trustee wasn't even allowed to look at it. That I didn't notice that the first time. That's completely inappropriate for the chair doesn't have the right to refuse a trustee to look at something. So he didn't even let Dills finish with it. As soon as Dills said, Mr. Hicks, I agree with this, Logue's like, that comes.
well, he cuts him off, right when I think Logue was worried that Joe Dills would say more and didn't want somebody to say anything, even say stuff that was against anonymous hit job attacks. And by the way, so people heard that I bleeped out the name. It wasn't in the original video that way. But so anything else?
No, I just he did not have that same face that he had previously with the previous speaker.
Well, I think it's I think I said what I need to be said. You can always say you should have said something different or a little better, but you saw there I just don't get, and it's true with the commissioners as well, as you know, and you and I've chatted about this some. These guys would take away my oxygen if they would just say, of course we're against this. We're not going to sign your thing, but of course we're against it. But other than Joe Dills said it, right? Becker never really said it. He's been a victim of it. Logue never said anything. He stands there staring, and the commissioners won't say it either. I would give these people a tip when you deal with somebody like me. A lot of times the politicians of Clermont County aren't used to dealing with criticism. They get a lot of it from me. But a lot of times it's better to just, take away the oxygen. And you take away the oxygen from somebody by saying, of course I don't agree with this. Go sit back down, Chris. Okay? It's hard to get up there and keep saying the same thing. So, all right, Bill, you ready for you?
Yeah, go ahead.
Go.
So typically I don't write out what I'm going to say before I go to meetings, but I did this time. And I'm not real happy that I had to come here today, Michael, but I told you I'd be here and I'm a man of my word. Mr. Logue, your recent conduct as a sitting member of this trustee board has not only been questionable but extremely disgraceful. 2 Mondays ago, you made an appearance at the UT RCC meeting. You're a sitting member of this committee. You've yet failed to appear at any previous meetings for the last 17 months. It was odd that you randomly picked the one meeting that a reporter for the first time was planning to be there. I won't disclose publicly why there was a reporter planned to be there, but we both know why your choice and motive to be there that night is extremely questionable by many people. You sent an email to the chairman stating that you had to leave because another member was harassing you by taking a picture of you and your kids in the back of the room. This seems extremely thin-skinned for someone that served such an honorable military career and that craves a photo op more than a Sports Illustrated swimsuit model. But what you did next was extremely dishonest and dishonorable. You wrote on your political page after sharing Vice President Vance's post about being harassed by liberals in public. This happens at all levels, especially when the young families step up. I won't go through since the last speaker read your post, so I'll skip through that. But my response to that post, Mike, is, wow, not all heroes wear capes. In that meeting, how did Chris Hicks taking a picture, place your American family values under attack? Where were you out as an elected Republican that night attending a central committee meeting inside the Township Center meeting room? How did Chris Hicks identify as a protester while he was attending a scheduled committee meeting he's a member on? Was he taking a picture of your kids? The picture he shared with you in the committee that he took was just of you and Commissioner Painter. How was him taking a picture a political stunt? How was him taking a picture of you, a veteran combat Marine, intimidating? How did that intimidate you? You're a combat veteran. I don't see how that can intimidate you. You've been through way worse hell than him taking a picture. This story sounds very similar to the gaslighting you did several months ago when you sat behind that table and told the story of your car being stolen, and you conveniently left out that the keys were left in your car. A classic Homer Simpson Dole moment. Trustees must serve with integrity, not run on and on during these meetings because they have self-desire to hear themselves speak so that everyone can recognize their self-importance. If you watch some of those sitting behind the table's reaction when you start talking, the face is, good Lord, here we go again, how much longer we have to endure the grandstanding of Logue. Mike, I know you'll pray for me. Maybe you can pray for me while using the F word and drinking a beer at your Crossroads church. See, I don't think such a passionate Christian as you profess to be would take such pleasure in dishonesty, backbiting, political gossip, foul language, and consuming too much alcohol. But hey, you texted me the other night, you'll pray for me. After you're done praying for me, please go on a quest to find yourself because you're lost. Mr. Becker, Mr. Dills, as sitting members of this trustee board, you have the responsibility to be upfront, honest about Mr. Logue's conduct. His actions reflect the entire trustee board. He is tainting the image of this board, and it's time the two of you call him out. He looks foolish, and I don't have to tell you what the book of Proverbs says about a foolish man. The people of Union Township voted for better than this, deserve better than this, better than a trustee that lacks modesty and integrity, better than spending more time getting photo ops with political figures and serving the people of this township. Better than a man that says he can't attend 17 months worth of meetings to a committee he chose to be a part to, why he can go kiss butt in Washington for several days, treating every moment like he's Taylor Swift at a KC Chiefs game. And most certainly better than a man that had the audacity to compare having his picture taken in a meeting to the harassment of the far left has put Vice President Vance through. How can someone so honorably discharged be so dishonorable? Mr. Logue, you fund Chris Hicks's page and initiatives with your goofy, dumb antics. Your dull moments cause speculation, which produce questions and demand answers in the form of records requests, which impose unnecessary wasted labor hours of your staff. That's not Chris Hicks, that's you, Mr. Logue. Stop passing the blame. I'll end on this last question, Mr. Logue. Who do you work for? The people of Township, Union Township, or Linda Fraley? The former advances your position with integrity. The latter advances your hopes for political ambitions that you've texted me many times that you do not have. Do you think anyone really believes that Michael Logue has no ambitions to advance politically, as you've stated on record to me multiple times? You, sir, are a liar. You need to be better. And I ask that these two trustees call out that post because it was disrespectful to our vice president. What he did in that meeting, I don't agree with taking a picture of you and if your kid was with you, but that's his business. But it certainly wasn't at the level of what you posted, and it was dishonest. And it should be called out instead of condoning this nonsense. You're a sitting trustee of this township. All these people that serve, and you're up here being dishonest. That's unbelievable. That's all I have to say.
Sir, Mr. Thomas, can I get your name and address for the record, please, on the verbal?
I thought you said that you had it written
The
down.
staff, I do, but the staff would
Bill
like, the
Thomas,
staff would like to hear
1259
it over
Holland
the radio.
Drive.
Thank you.
Okay, so that was you, and I got some reactions to it. I love the swimsuit model, because anybody knows Michael Logue never saw a politician he didn't want to get a picture with, or a reporter he didn't want to be on camera with. So he's a photo hound on that kind of stuff. Whatever you said about Taylor Swift, like wanting attention, like
You know what's funny is I didn't time that, and it was 5 minutes and 2 to 4 seconds.
Yeah.
I didn't time it beforehand. It just magically ended right on the 5 minute mark. But what's funny is the second yours was up, man, they were on you. Yeah. I went over by about 4 or 5 seconds, and nobody said anything.
And I tell you, if you go talk to these government meetings, if you're saying a bunch of positive stuff, they always let you go over.
Oh, of course.
If you're being critical, they if you're me, they're really on you. And but I loved at the end. So I think I kind of cut out at the beginning of mine. But when I went up, normally at public participation anywhere, you're supposed to say your name and address for the record. Okay. And so that's why you hear people do it, like Chris Hicks, 444 Woodward Court, blah, blah, blah. But when I went up, I stand there till they tell me my time starts. I do it in everything where I do public participation. If you watch me, I stand there till I'm told to start. And I'm like, usually they say, state your name and address, and then you're starting. Okay. And they just like look at me. He's like, go ahead. And I'm like, should I state my name and address? And he's like, you don't have to. We got him on the card. I'm like, well, I'll do it anyway because you're supposed to do that. And I did it. But when you did it, then you walk away, and then Logue has this. He didn't make you do it up front, but at the back end, oh, we need your address for the record. So even though, before you comment, Bill, because I want to love to hear your comment is, in Union Township public participation, you have to fill out a card where you write your name and address on the card, so they have it up there. But why is it you think that Michael Logue so much when it needed you to say your name and address?
So I don't know if you heard it, but you could hear Corey whisper to, it must have been John, Corey whispering to John, we need his address or something. I think Corey called it out that they needed it. I thought that too, but apparently Corey asked, and then Becker relayed the message to Logue that they needed my address. However, you didn't catch the part where Logue then took, once I told them I wasn't a resident of Union Township, then Logue in turn said, now back to the business of the people of Union Township.
Hold on a second. I stopped it a little quick. Let me go right to the end here.
Thank you for your comments. Now we can return to the business of the people of Union Township.
The people of Union Township. Mr. Logue, because I know you're going to watch this, probably with Linda Fraley and some popcorn. Let me tell you something. I have 2 family members currently living in Union Township. I myself have lived in Union Township since I was 6 years old. You were still on your mother's boob taking milk when I lived in Union Township. I'm just going to tell you right now, don't ever come at me as not being a resident of Union Township, because I've been a resident far, far, far longer than you have. And my family has been in Union Township far, far longer. You didn't graduate from Glen Estee or Amelia, so don't ever come at me as not the person of the resident people of Township.
So just so everybody knows, you don't have to be from wherever you do public participation at. That would actually be illegal if they try to restrict you. Any citizen has the right to participate in public participation, period. That's the law. The second thing is the whole concept of any belief that it's, citizens, from there. What if somebody lived in Anderson Township and there was some problem, it's right next to being caused by Union Township? Like my neighborhood's right on the county line. What if people were throwing screaming loud drunk parties in my neighborhood, like I was accused of doing in the past, and maybe I did, I don't know, I can't remember. But and people in Anderson Township wanted to come and complain. They can come and complain, okay? The irony too, beyond that was a little dig at you, I think, but also just the attitude, frankly, the most important part of the meeting, these politicians should think, is public participation, because nobody freaking comes to meetings. If somebody comes to a meeting and takes the time to talk, they should always thank them, even if they hate them for participating, and they should always consider that important. What kind of D-bag doesn't think that the citizens coming to your meeting is the business of the township? And by the way, the Union Township trustees moved their meetings to be at 6. They used to be at 7 in the olden days, and a lot of people can't even get to the meetings now. And because by the time public participation happens and is over, even if you get the meeting at 7, it'll be over at that point in time. So any event, that was the little dig at you in there on this. So what else do you have to say about this, Bill? We've kind of hit the highlights.
I think because the main thing is other people need to, if you really want to be Mike Logue's friend, then you need to call out his behavior. Unless you think this behavior is okay. I mean, do you think it's anybody that thinks that posting what he did about JD Vance and relating himself, knowing this true story, and those that were there and witnessed it, like Rob Wing, keep going back to that, because I know Rob Wing probably deep down is like, man, I can't believe Logue did it. but would never call him out. And that's the problem. People like that are a problem because they enable the bad behavior.
Right.
You don't even have to be as aggressive as I am about it. You can just say, you know, Mike, that really wasn't a good look. But that's all you got to say. You don't even have to be like a complete jerk about it. You could just say it that way. I'm just tired of it. I go all the way back to the time that I drug his 4x8 sign in the back of the room, threw it down before the meeting, and you know that resident, the lady flat out said to me, I didn't give him permission to put the sign there. He just shows up and puts a sign in my yard. Then by the end of the meeting, before the end of the trustee meeting, he texts Linda Fraley and, you know, the savior, the miss, I get driveways put in for
the
people
queen
to
bee
win
of
favor.
Clermont County politics. If anybody doesn't realize this, the puppet master is Linda Fraley.
Yeah, hey, Linda, just so you know, Cookie is enjoying her new driveway that she had put in for her. But, you know, these people that I stopped to their houses and asked, it was always Linda Fraley told us to do it. So the lady, it must have been on 3 or 4 hours later, texts me, hey, it's okay if Mike Logue puts a sign in my yard at this point. Don't take it down again. It took one call to Linda Fraley to fix it. Linda Fraley's like the Scott Croswell of running political campaigns in
The fixer?
Clermont County. Yeah, the fixer. You know.
All right. So let's circle it back. You know, now this is Robin had a comment. You know, Painter said they will never sign anything Hicks presents. I think that's true, and I think that's dumb. Now they might not have to sign something, but this tells you. I don't think, now you've worked in professional stuff, Bill, and a lot of politicians have never dealt with professional, what I call like tougher crisis situations when you have clients and stuff like that, where you can't go in there and, it didn't really happen much. And when I worked for Anderson Consulting, was involved in a lot of fixing troubled projects. And but you can't, you got to be able to say, even if the constituent you think is an ass, is a pain, is whatever, you have to be able to say, on this thing, he's right. And I should at least acknowledge that we should not support we should not support anonymous hit jobs. Right. And it's if you saw that, well, I'm going to show something else here real quick. I'm not going to play anything, but you can go out and look at my Facebook, or I put it on X too. I'm going to start using X, and I'll see if I can start streaming on X also, and on YouTube. But I put out the meeting video. So I got in record speed, I got the video. There's surveillance cameras in the room. And I knew this from a meeting that they had secretly down there, and I got the surveillance video for that, the trustees, before. It's a long story. But so this is, and I zoomed in on it here because it has, the camera picks up a lot of floor and a lot of nothing. But you see, this is like the graininess of it. They're grainy. They're crappy cameras. They're like, they must be ancient cameras. But so you can go out and watch the whole video in the meeting. There's no audio with the security cameras, but you can see the Michael Logue coming in, Michael Logue leaving, and the whole thing. So you just see the horrible torment he was put under during the meeting.
Man, that records request was absolute record time. I mean,
record time turnaround.
I've never seen a records request returned.
I appreciate the efficiency. I'm going to have to go there. Maybe I'll be like the woman and go there and praise them on how fast they turned around the record request.
You should go up to the podium and I need
to contact Ken Geis and bitch at him for when he was in Union Township. You didn't do records requests that fast.
You need to go up to the podium and say, hey, that request I put in for Michael Logue, man, I've never seen it returned so fast. What was the reason it was returned so fast?
So any event, hey, you mentioned the sign. And when I made the little video where I edited, because you get all these video files and I put it together just side by side because they're different camera streams. And so I sent it back, and you were copied on it, Bill, when I sent it back, thanking Corey for the records. And by the way, this is the video I made of this. And so I wrote out a list of things I've seen. You mentioned the sign thing. So I mentioned 15 things where I feel like Michael Logue's been involved in sketchy or dishonest behavior, like blaming me for not knowing endorsement dates when Dora Murphy had told me that she told him all the endorsement dates and he just effed up. lie. But my second item, lying about having no political aspirations beyond township trustee. You and I both know that. How much political aspiration do you think Michael Logue has, Bill?
I mean, if I take him for his word, 0. But if I take him for his actions, he wants to be
A
president.
million.
He wants to be president of the United States next week. So I mean,
For having no political aspirations, he's up the ass of every politician he can find that's at a higher level. He tried to have me arrested at Crossroads on I don't know if you remember that on election day on a total nonsense. I'm not going to have any details on these. This will be a fun call just to do these. Personally involved in that somehow defrauded Fernando Cruz. I don't know if you know that even, Bill. Michael Logue was being texted by Tony Reese on what was the status of the Fernando Cruz coming in to try to nail me. How misled people about inner city youth boosting his wife's car, which you mentioned that one. That I did anything to Monica Kelsey. You might not like my view on baby boxes, but I did nothing to Monica Kelsey. I asked her for a brochure and she went apeshit at me. You might not be saying some of these, Bill, but you know that I'm some evil person for accurately telling the truth about Michael Logue having a campaign finance sugar daddy that was at the county. It's the truth. You might not like me. You might not like the word sugar daddy, but it's true. Lying about having a meeting at his house where they soft hired Brody Conover. Demonizing Ken Geis over Evans when Michael Logue's wife was a character witness for Evans, just like Ken Geis was, and Doug Evans. Lied about. I'm going to ask for your reaction on this one, Bill. You might say you take the fifth, but lied about Susan Ayers being a fantastic CEO of Union Township during the election campaign when she got tossed like right after the election was over because she was a total disaster.
I think that one is kind of where he and I really started to have our differences, because I was way early on before she was released. I would go to him and say, man, she's terrible. And I can't disclose all the people that have come to me about issues with her, but I had multiple people come to me and say, I haven't gotten paid from her, or I didn't get this from her. I didn't get that. I've been waiting on. She was just incompetent and lazy. And Mike defended her till the day even during the dismissal, he was trying to defend her. It's crazy. Like,
they
let
didn't want to. We know at least one of the trustees wanted to get rid of her. It was obvious. I mean, it was. The funny part about her too is they gave her $1 million to waste on Eastgate Mall, and she still couldn't get the people to want to participate in the project. So think about that, Bill. If somebody gave you and me $1 million that you could dole out on some project at Eastgate Mall, you would think you could get the attention of the people who own the parcels there.
You give me $1 million and you say whatever you don't spend, you get to keep. I'll make it happen, and I'll get not to pay me.
My next one was a mall-related thing. You know, Michael Logue went on TV and claimed that their innovative work at the Eastgate Mall is what caused Hull Properties to come forward to buy it, and then it turned out Hull Properties didn't even know there was any initiative, and then they didn't participate in the initiative. Once they did, they were totally ignorant of that this was going on. He altered a quote of John McGraw's relating to Ken Geis. I don't know if you remember that. Mm-hmm. He left out a line to make it sound like John McGraw was demonizing Ken Geis when it was taken out of context by leaving a line out of the quote. I didn't like the way he put the GOP endorsement thing on his mailer cards when it's like some group in Columbus. Accused Matt Beamer of taking kickbacks in a mailer of Matt Beamer having bags full of cash. And then finally, accused the trustees of having some sort of financial malfeasance because they didn't have the auditor of state do their audits. And as far as I know, they still have the same firm doing their audits right now. They never changed the firm. I think it's the same firm doing them. So there's a lot of this, and I think hopefully the Roosters, I mean, you know, I was never a fan of Logue, but I would also say that for somebody to be in a good position, they need wise counsel. And if you get where you're posting nonsense about you're like JD Vance because of a meeting, is you need some help. You need some help, and you need your friends. I'm never going to be Mike Logue's friend. Would you agree with that, Bill? I'm never going to be Mike.
No, that's never happening.
So, but whoever is his friend, get out. No, I'm just, so whoever is his friend, he needs wise counsel. He needs wise counsel.
I really felt like that's what I was trying to do. I mean, I know Mike would never believe this, but I really did consider him a friend and somebody I cared about. And I believe that if you are truly a friend to somebody, you call them out. When I asked Tammy to run against him, it was because I didn't feel like he was the best trustee he didn't have the best interest of Union Township. His other ambitions were taking over his time that he should be focusing on Union Township. And when I sat him down, face to face, he looked me dead set in the eye at Quaker State Lube down on Chamber Drive, looked me square in the eye and said, "Are you interested in Brad Winstrup's seat?" And he looked me square in the eye. I said, "No, I have no interest in anything outside of Union Township." And it wasn't more than, I don't know, what was it, a month or two or less, that he was standing up in Central Committee and saying he was praying about running for Brad Winstrup's seat.
Well, hold on. You didn't. I wasn't even at the meeting, but I had a lot of people relay it to me. He stood up. It was another Logism situation. He stood up and said he was running.
Did he actually say he was running?
Yes. And
Okay.
then he no, I'm thinking about running. At first he said he was running. Then he kind of backpedaled and he was thinking about running in the meeting. So the guy's got political aspirations. He should not, by the way. If your mind is driven by just wanting to get up that level, that means you're not focused on the citizens. You look at somebody
Right.
like Donald Trump. Donald Trump's not president because he just had this burning desire his whole life to be president. He's president because the country's effed and he's going to try to fix it. When you're one of these, don't you think it's politicians that are too ambitious? I think they're dangerous, and because they'll do anything. They will do anything for power,
Especially the ones that want to be fast tracked.
right?
And that's what's happening with him, is he's wanting to fast track his career. And what makes sense, these politicians, they don't make sense. When I would talk to Bernie Moreno, it was always 2 terms, I'm done. I will not run for a third. He's been on record, he's quoted it, and I'm going to tell you right now, I 100% believe him. And if he does run for a 3rd Senate term, I would absolutely be disappointed in him. But I'm not worried about that because I know he won't do it. He doesn't have a desire to be in there for more than 12 years.
Well,
12 years is a long time.
So my grandmother, we got to wrap up here. My grandmother loved Steve Shabbat, and I lived in Mount Washington when I was a kid, and my dad lived in Bethel. And Steve Shabbat would go door to door and stuff like this, and he was running for council, and she loved him. Every campaign he'd be pounding the flesh. Steve Shabbat, 20, 30 years later, was a very different man. And my point is, I don't care who you are, Bernie Moreno, Steve Shabbat, whoever, it changes you over time. And that's why it's so important, to get out. That's why, it's kind of like you wish more political people would have the attitude that Bernie Moreno had 2 years ago, Bill, and then not vary from it, not vary from it. But you look at all the troglodytes we have a gerontocracy in a lot of our, the Senate has a lot of gerontocracy. What's her Feinstein? They wheeled her out dead, basically.
He truly is the first candidate I've ever heard say, after 12 years, I'm going to be stale. We need somebody new in to pick up the torch and do new things that.
Well, that's another thing that in a company, people get the point of you move on, and a big part of a company that politicians don't understand is in corporate culture, like in the IBM culture, part of what we're supposed to be doing was identifying and preparing who would take your place.
Right.
And you're not going to be there and anybody who's a good leader knows that even if you think you're doing a great job, you need new blood sometimes because new blood brings different ideas. And I don't mean to jabber on, but I tell people, I like my house the way it is. This is my example. And when I walk around it, everything's fine. I don't care. It's great the way it is. Now, Bill, if you came and walked around my house and I asked you, what do you think I should change about this house? You've been in my house like once, twice, a couple times, okay? And you probably would come up with a bunch of ideas because you're a fresh set of eyes, because you don't live there, you're not inclined to the culture of it. And so you'd be like, oh, well, I would change this wall, or I would paint it different, or I would do this, or I would do that in there. So fresh set of eyes, people think like, oh, experience. No, a lot of times fresh set of eyes it's kind of like in the military. I've never been in the military, but what happens if they're not winning the battle? Somebody else be put in charge because they're going to bring a fresh set of eyes to it and figure out what do we got to do to get our asses out of here. So, any event, I don't need to be meaning to be jabbering on. Anything else? Do you want to pray for Bernie for Michael Logue right now?
No, I will do that in my own private time. But
the funny thing is that what it's referring to is these people that are like, oh, the way I tell you what, Jesus Christ, I don't think ever put somebody down condescendingly by saying, I'll pray for you. You know what I'm saying? And that's what some people do, is they're not lifting you up. They're using they're using Jesus as a put down. You're bad, so I'm going to pray for you.
Yeah, I get when people deal with death and things like that, and it's like the classic, I'll pray for you. I don't say that to people when they're experiencing like a death or something, because I just don't feel right about saying that. I think you don't say I understand. I'll pray for you. It's important that we let people know that we're going to pray for them. I'm not taking that away, but it's one thing if you're saying it with the right heart.
Right.
That's the thing. This tells you
versus is a way to put somebody down.
Right. This tells you whether they're being sincere or not. And Michael Logue uses it as a way of it's not about that he really is going to pray for me. He's praying. It's like it's a way of, it's almost like he's judging you. It's like a judgment. I'll pray for you because you're inadequate.
You obviously are damaged, and I'm perfect, Michael
Logue.
Hey, I want to leave one thought here at the end, because we're on a kind of a spiritual thing here. When I used to go to India, and you drive around and there's just abject poverty. By the way, the people seem happier. They're abjectly poverty and they seem happier than here. And you look around, and I would try to drive around to have a mentality, and I think we all should, is that every person is just as valuable as me. Every person that God created is just as valuable as me. So using faith as a put down of another person, I just think is not that just says wise counsel. So hopefully some friends of Michael Logue help him have some wise counsel. And because if he keeps doing nonsense, he doesn't need to cover it up. We don't need to treat the symptoms. He needs to treat the disease of what is causing him to be this way, and not just try to spackle it over. I tell you what, if Michael Logue could get wise counsel, it's going to make him a better husband, a better father, a better politician, a better whatever he does. To have that in his life. Frankly, Michael Logue could use losing. If he lost to Tammy Brinkman, it would have made him a better person.
That right there is the entire premise. That is why I did it. He thinks that I did it for some malice. For malice. No, I did it because I think he needed it.
Right. You learn more. I haven't read it, but Dan Bongino talks about his book, and it's very true. You learn more by your failures than you do by your successes. That's where the life lessons are. The question is, can Michael Logue even humble himself to get some life lessons out of this whole nonsense that he's put upon himself? All right. Closing thought. You get the closing thought.
I'm going to answer Robin's question real quick. So, Robin, Bernie Moreno's wife, Bridget, I was with her at a lot of events because sometimes she would get left behind and get, everybody was flocking to Bernie and people were getting shoved sometimes. So I'd always stand with her. A lot of times I did. She will divorce him if he runs a third term. I mean, she's been on record, and Bernie knows it. Bernie Moreno is not running for a third term. I know that it's hard to believe that you can actually put faith in a politician he's not running for a third term for several reasons. One, the man's worth $100 million or whatever going into this whole thing. He's never been in a political career. That's all self-earned money. He wants to enjoy his time with his grandkids. He just had grandkids. By 12 years, time's running out. He will not be allowed to run for a third term, and he doesn't want to because he's got ambitions to go on cruises and vacations and do family things. So he will not be running for a third term. And I do believe him. I wouldn't believe any other politician except
Trust but
him.
verify. It's Ronald
Yep.
Reagan, trust but verify. Okay. And then final comment, we'll wrap it up here. David Goodyear put, if I hear Mr. Logue will do anything for a position, I don't know that that's 100% true. I know one thing he won't do is sign something I put in front of him. And maybe I'll go back to the next one, Bill, and I'll have a thing for him to sign saying Jesus Christ is my Lord and Savior.
I think that you should, of all things that you take and sign, Painter's probably going to call me tomorrow and say, quit encouraging him to bring things to the meeting. But
I got to order some more card stock. It works good at meetings.
I think that you should take a document and hand it to the commissioners. Like I said, they're going to be pissed at me for saying this, but I'm sorry. It's just too funny. Just take it and say, Jesus is Lord. Would you sign this?
Would you sign this?
And I guarantee you they're going to.
We're not going to be part of that. It's so crazy because they dig a hole for themselves. It just goes on and on. They don't understand how to deal with little crises like that. Like they don't know how to deal with critics, and so it's unfortunate. And that's I don't know. You and I, they try to get the people who be critics to be fighting each other, like you and me fighting each other. So we're not questioning them. So
I know we want to get cut off, but let me say this. If I'm an elected official, and Chris, you and I don't, people need to understand that Chris and I don't always agree on things. This is going to be one of the times that Chris doesn't agree with me, and that's okay. He doesn't have to. But if I'm sitting at the commissioner's
hold on, I can put my finger on the kill switch for you. No, go ahead.
If I'm sitting at the commissioner's table and Chris Hicks brings me some document that says, hey, you need to sign this, and I'm going to look at it and I'm going to say, Mr. Hicks, this is a very well-written document. Personally, I probably agree with you on all this stuff. However, I'm serving in the role of a commissioner, and unfortunately, as a commissioner, I'm serving the people of Clermont County. They are Republican, they are Democrat, they are nonpartisan. I am in an official capacity in this meeting. Therefore, I cannot sign this document or really attest to agreeing to it on this venue. But what I will do is I will take it and hand it to the prosecutor's office and let them review and see if it's something that I would be allowed to sign and it wouldn't conflict.
Well, they don't. Okay, so if they do that, Bill, I'll have a field day with it. They need to learn how to just say, like what Joe Dills did. If Michael Logue had let Joe Dills talk, Joe Dills would have taken away my oxygen, because Joe Dills would say, because he started to say, Chris, well, of course I agree with this. I'm just not going to be part of this little thing you're doing here.
So you didn't hear what I said.
That right there takes away the oxygen.
But I did say in my response, if you remember, I said this is a well-written document and I agree with things on it in my personal capacity. But then I transfer it over but in my official capacity,
but that's
I cannot sign it.
Political BS.
I know you don't agree with it.
Just so everybody knows that's listening, a politician can say pretty much whatever they want. The idea that they have to get approval, they are the elected official. In a meeting, if they want to say something about Christ, if they want to do this, they are the elected official. They cannot be taken out of office.
Chris, that's not necessarily true.
Because
Candace Keller, if you remember, said some things and was forced to resign as a state rep. You don't always get to say what you want as an elected official.
Well, if you do defamatory things and stuff like that, people are going to take action against you. That's a different ballgame. But in any event, we both agree that they need to figure out. So David Painter, Bonnie, Claire, figure out the next time I do this, what are you going to do? I want to challenge you to take away my oxygen, to acknowledge something like, of course, I'm against anonymous hit jobs. But I'm not going to be part of your charade of signing these things. That would take away my oxygen, make me look like the dumbass because I want you to sign it. I'm going to challenge David, Bonnie, Claire, do better. Come up with a way. All right. I think that's it. My camera seems locked up. on
Yep,
my end.
you locked your camera up. The Facebook god said they've had enough of you.
All right. If you can't hear me, I assume you might still hear me. But good night, everybody. Have a good rest of good remainder of this evening. Thank you.
Good night.